Did you know that within your body resides a predator, smaller than the width of a human hair, capable of causing devastating infections? Meet Entamoeba, a microscopic organism that challenges our perception of the power dynamics in the world of life. How much do we truly understand about this enigmatic creature, and what lessons does its existence hold for us? So now, let's learn through this video about this amazing specimen. Now, to begin with a brief introduction of our specimen, Entamoeba, it is a tiny protozoan parasite of men and animals. This genera Entamoeba includes different species that infect different animals such as reptiles, birds, amphibians, and other animals. Though the scientists have discovered 7 species, I've only included 3, which includes first one is the Entamoeba disper, which is the most prevalent species and is associated only with asymptomatic carrier state and has been identified frequently in homosexual men. Second one is the E. moskovsky. It is considered as primarily a free-living amoeba. The last and very harmful of all is the E. histolytica, which is a tissue-damaging pathogen infecting predominantly the humans. Histolytica was first reported by Fedor Ilosh in 1875, but it was not given any Latin name. The Latin name was later given in 1903 by Fritz Schouten. In the Entamoeba histolytica, it is known that even among themselves, they exist in 2 forms, which are minuta form and virulent form. Minuta is non-pathogenic form, which is also known as non-invasive form. They are smaller in size and live in lumen of large intestine, whereas the virulent form is the pathogenic or tissue-damaging form. They live in mucosa and submucosa of large intestine of human. Now to move on with their geographical distribution, they are found in all population throughout the world, but it is most abundantly found in China, India, South America, and Africa, with 2 to 60% prevalence. If we talk about their habitat, they enter our body when we drink unhygienic water, like example from the tap or the rivers, and upon entering our body, they reside in the mucus and submucous layer of large intestine. They are primarily found in the colon. However, for unknown reasons, it can become invasive, breaching the gut barrier and migrating toward the liver, causing amoebic liver diseases. The Entamoeba histolytica is 10 to 60 micrometers tall with oval or spherical in shape. The most outer layer is the cell membrane, which helps to regulate the movement of outer and inner substances. The second one is the projection-like structure over here, and it's called a pseudopodium, and it helps in locomotion and ingestion. The third layer is the outermost gel-like layer of the amoeba, called the ectoplasm, and is denser compared to the endoplasm. Moving on to the inner layer contents, first one is the RBC or the red blood cells. The amoeba eats up or phagocytes RBCs from the surrounding and are used as nutrient source for themselves. Second one is the WBCs or the white blood cells. They help in invading organisms and engulf them by phagocytosis. The third one is the food vacuole. It is ovular in structure, which contains food and participates in intracellular digestion. The last one is the nucleus, which contains the most important genetic materials, and it has central karyosome and chromatin fibers. This is the final structure of the inner contents of the Entamoeba histolytica, and they are contained inside the endoplasm, which is a gel-like material closer to the center of the cell. Like some of you have wondered, yes, you're right. This organism doesn't possess the most important organelle, called the mitochondria. Being an anaerobic organism, they do not have mitochondria, but do have mitosomes, which is considered a highly reduced form of mitochondria. But you all should keep in mind that organelles in the Entamoeba histolytica is still the subject of ongoing research in the world of science.
The life cycle of Entamoeba. For the life cycle of Entamoeba, we have taken the example of the Entamoeba histolytica. It is a monogenetic parasite, and it is the only Entamoeba species that is pathogenic towards humans. The life cycle of Entamoeba histolytica is overall simple, and it is completed in a single host. For the mode of transmission, fecal-oral route is the most common mode of transmission, whereas sexual contact and vectors are rare. Entamoeba histolytica exists in three forms: trophozoite, precyst, and cyst. Trophozoite or feeding stage or free-moving stage lives in the mucosa and submucosa of large intestine, especially in the colon and cecum. It is the invasive form of the parasite. Precyst, it is the transit stage between the trophozoite and cyst formed in the lumen of the large intestine. The third form, cyst, it is the non-feeding infective stage of the parasite found in the lumen of the large intestine. The infection begins when the host swallows the mature quadrinuclear cyst along with the contaminated food or water. As the cyst wall is resistant to the acidity content of the stomach, the quadrinucleate cyst passes unaltered into the small intestine where excitation takes place. In the intestine, the cyst wall is digested by the action of trypsin in an alkaline medium at the temperature of 37 degrees Celsius. During this process, the cytoplasmic body retracts and loosens from the cyst wall. Pseudopodia are formed at various points and vigorous amoeboid movements occur within the cyst. Frequently, the pseudopodia presses against the wall at certain spots as though the imprisoned organisms were searching for an exit. Eventually, a tetranucleate amoeba known as metacyst, an amoeba with 4 nuclei, emerges. Immediately on emergence, the 4 nuclei of the metacyst undergo division to form 8 nuclei. Each nuclei gets surrounded by a bit of its cytoplasm and leads to an independent existence. Thus, 8 amoebula are formed. These are known as metacystic or metacyclic trophozoites, which are actively motile. The metacystic trophozoites move down to the cecum and ileocacal region of the intestine. The young amoebula, being actively motile, invade the tissues and finally lodge themselves into the mucosa and submucosa of the large intestine, its final abode. They prefer this site as the organic material, pH, and the gases in this part of the large intestine are more stable and ideal for the existence of Amoeba histolytica trophozoites. Here, the trophozoites grow at the expense of the living tissues and multiply by simple binary fission. The trophozoites secrete histolysin, which causes necrosis and destruction of the host tissues and helps the parasite to derive nourishment from the dissolved dead tissues. However, some non-invasive trophozoites remain in the lumen of the large intestine and multiply by binary fission. These trophozoites feed on the host nutrients from the surrounding medium. Some of the trophozoites from the cells of the mucosa and submucosa after repeated binary fission move back into the lumen of the intestine. When the condition becomes unfavorable for the trophozoites in the lumen of the large intestine, they start to develop a cyst wall. A precyst is first formed, which soon becomes an uninucleate immature cyst. The nucleus within the cyst divides to form a binucleate cyst. The nucleus divides again for the second time to form a quadrinucleate or tetranucleate mature cyst. The transformation of a trophozoite into a mature quadrinucleate cyst is called the incestation and is a means of protecting a species from extinction. Incestation does not take place in the tissues of the man, neither in the intestinal mucosa nor in the liver, lungs, etc. Thus, the metacystic invasion of the trophozoite for all biological purposes is a dead end for the parasite. Incestation takes place a few hours and a mature quadrinucleate cyst can remain viable in the lumen of the large intestine for only 2 days. The mature quadrinucleate cysts are passed out along with the feces of the host. About 45 million cysts may be voided out from one infected person in a day. The cysts are resistant to the environmental conditions and can live for a few weeks to a few months depending on the temperature. Moisture is essential for the long existence of the cyst. They can live up to 10 days in a moist stool. The cysts are, however, susceptible to desiccation. Trophozoites are also voided out along with the cyst in the feces, but they cannot survive outside the body of the host for more than 1 hour, and even if they are ingested by another human being during this period, they are killed in the body of the host by the acidic juice of the stomach. An important point to note is that both existation and anexistation are not reproductive processes. Ancestation and excistation can take place in the same host. Another host is required only for the perpetuation of the species. Pathogenicity of Entamoeba histolytica. Entamoeba histolytica is the causative agent of human amoebiasis, an enteropathetic disease affecting millions of people worldwide. Although other non-pathogenic amoeba species share this same lifestyle, E. histolytica has been able to take advantage of gene regulation and activated pathways to adapt to the host responses when the balance between the parasite and the intestinal ecosystem is disturbed. It is most prevalent in regions where human waste is used as fertilizers. Severity of amoebiasis varies greatly among patients and geographic areas. Many people are asymptomatic carriers, and others have sudden severe infections that progress steadily to death. The symptoms of amoebiasis include gradually cramping lower abdominal pain, weight loss, and recurring bouts of watery, mucus, or bloody diarrhea. Other symptoms may include malodorous flatus, intermittent constipation, nausea, vomiting, right-sided cramps, loss of appetite, and tenesmus. In severe cases, Entamoeba histolytica can penetrate the intestinal wall and spread to other organs. Extraintestinal complications of amoebiasis include hepatic, subdiaphragmatic, periappendical, subhepatic abscesses, perineal amoebic dermatitis, hepatobronchial, hepatocolic, abdominocolic, and anorectal fistulas. These pictures show some of the extraintestinal complications caused by the amoeba histolytica in humans.
Hello, I'm Ramchandra Kilal and I'll be doing the last part of our video presentation. Join us as we delve into the diagnosis, treatment and pyrolysis, general measure of parasitic control, its economic importance, and research and advances of Entamoeba parasites. We have already discussed that most of the Entamoeba species are non-pathogenic, which means they are incapable of causing any diseases and harm. However, Entamoeba histolytica causes intestinal and extraintestinal amoebiasis in human. So amoebiasis is an intestinal bowel disease caused by Entamoeba histolytica. Now, firstly, let's talk about its diagnosis. Imagine you are experiencing symptoms such as stomach cramp, diarrhea, fever, loss of appetite, and maybe seeing blood in the stool. This could be the sign of Entamoeba infection. But to confirm this, you need to see the healthcare provider. The most common test they will perform is the examination of stool. This may sound unpleasant, but it's an important step in the diagnosis of Entamoeba infection. They will collect a small sample of the stool and examine under the microscope. This includes finding of cysts or trophozoites, which are the two stages of parasitic life cycle that causes this infection. In some cases, additional tests such as liver biopsy and PCR are also conducted for better and accurate results. If the result for the diagnosis is positive, which means you found cyst and tropozoite in the sample. Don't worry, there are effective treatment options available. Treatment includes the use of antiparasitic medicinal drugs such as metronidazole and tinidazole, which targets and kill the Entameoba parasite. The antiparasitic medicinal drug dose and duration usually vary depending on the severity, individual age, and health. However, 500 to 800 milligram 3 times a day dose for 10 days with meals is usually recommended by the doctors. Sometimes chemotherapy, which basically damages genes inside the nucleus of the cell, can also be effective treatment for the amoebiasis. Now, let's talk about the preventive measure for this infection. Well, it's not always possible to completely prevent this infection, but there are certain steps to reduce the risks. First and foremost is the practice of good hygiene. This includes washing your hands frequently with soap and water, especially before eating, after using bathroom, and after handling potentially contaminated objects or surfaces. Avoiding consuming untreated water, including tap water, ice cube, and fountain tubes by strictly sticking to bottled waters or beverages that were been boiled or properly treated is another control measure. When it comes to food, it is important to avoid eating raw and uncooked meats, seafoods, and vegetables. Regarding high-risk environment, such as healthcare setting and daycare facility, taking extra precaution, such as wearing gloves and practicing good hand hygiene, is important measure to prevent entamoeba infection. In case of economic importance, this parasitic infection, which affects approximately more than 50 million people, imposes significant financial burden on healthcare system. Expenses include diagnosis, treatment, and management costs. It also reduces productivity due to loss of income for affected individuals and family and absenteeism from the work. This infection will also affect livestock farming and international trade due to lower productivity and restriction in the international trade. In case of research and advances, research is underway developing more accurate diagnostic tool, treatment option, and vaccines against this parasite. Despite the high burden of disease, there are currently no licensed vaccine available for this infection.